Hello and welcome to one more chapter with me, Kay and Alleena. So today I'm going to be reviewing An Ember in the Ashes by Sapa Tahir. And if you remember, this was one of those books that was really hyped up on BookTube last month. And I read it, I think I finished it May 22nd. And I had only started a couple days beforehand. It was just one of those books I could not put down. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So this is going to be a review, and I'm going to warn you right now that I might not be entirely spoiler free, but what I do talk about is going to be less like huge plot breaking spoilers and more like you might be told some names of characters, or there might be a couple things that end up being spoilers because you don't know about them until later in the book. So if you're concerned about spoilers, I would say steer clear from my book reviews. But if you're kind of one of those that would be more intrigued by certain names or certain places mentioned herein, I would say continue watching. So yeah, I want to repeat again that I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars and I could not put it down. But I want to talk a little bit about the setting first so that you can understand, you know, the basics of the story before I start jumping into my review. So it's kind of like a Roman Empire type setting, and so there's the soldiers and the fighting class people who are part of the empire. There's the scholars who are not part of the empire, and in fact very, very oppressed peoples. And then there's the tribes, which either help either the scholars or the soldiers, depending on the situation. So our characters are Leia, and she's a scholar, and we have Elias, and he's not just any soldier, but he's a mask, and these are like the best fighters in the Empire. They're training to be the best fighters in the Empire. So, yeah, neither of these characters are free from any sort of anything. So Leia ends up having to become a slave in order to infiltrate the school that Elias is at because her brother got taken for trying to spy on the Empire. And scholars aren't supposed to be able to read or write or anything like that, but it turns out that Leia's parents were part of the resistance and part of this movement to try and take back their freedom type thing. So Leia ends up having to be in the commander's household, and she's like crazy abusive, kind of mostly evil, and kind of overtaken by this really dark force. This dark force wants not just to, take over an empire, but to eliminate the scholars for some old grudge that had happened. And I'm not going to go any further than that because I think that's probably one of the most interesting parts of the story, the way that this darkness kind of filtered in through the empire in order to take some revenge. And I think even though the story didn't feel like a revenge story at first, I thought that was really freaking cool. So yeah, Leia has to be a slave in this really abusive household, and she's trying to make friends with the other ones, and they find out that the cook was part of the resistance at one point too, and ended up like scarred beyond recognition and can barely speak because of the way that the commander tortured her for that, but still remains in the household. Besides that, there's another girl who is Leia's friend, and Leia does eventually try and help her get out of the situation because the commander took one of her eyes. It's just a bad place to be, especially if you're a scholar. They think that these soldiers and the Empire think that, scholars are way beneath them, that the oppression is perfectly fine because this is what, the Emperor has wanted or something. But it turns out more that things are happening in a domino effect for a reason, for this darkness to kind of overcome everything. It's not just about the Empire anymore. It's more like, you never know what move you're gonna. It's like, it feels to me like both of these characters were on a chessboard their entire lives, perhaps even before their lives began. So yeah, that's Leia's story. I wouldn't say story, obviously, because I didn't want to spoil the entire book for you, but that's Leia's kind of goal, is to get her brother back out of the prison and to spy on the Empire. And nobody believed that she was able to actually do this, but she does, and she's more important than she lets herself believe. She's stronger than she lets herself believe. So there's that whole journey of self-discovery in this book too, which I really appreciated. And it didn't only happen for Leia, it also happened for Elias, and he's the soldier. Like I said, he's a mask. He's got this kind of mask that kind of molds to his face to symbolize how, connected he is to the Empire. He ends up kind of tied in with some sort of destiny that these clergy type characters have foretold about him, and he gets confused. It's like the hero's journey where he's like, no, I'm denying this quest, you got the wrong person type thing, and he's like, I can't be that special. Although if you think about it, his mouth doesn't really want to join to his face because he keeps taking it off, which is sort of forbidden, mostly. Not really forbidden, but it's frowned upon. If you're a mask, if you're good enough to be a mask, that is a huge honor. That's a huge honor to the Empire type thing. There ends up being these challenges where he has to like fight his best friend that he loves, and he has to like try and become either the Emperor or the Blood Shrike, and he has to defeat all these evil people in order for things to happen properly, and he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to be that kind of person. He refuses to kill people, and so ends up himself almost dying. And throughout this kind of quest, this is how he meets up with Leia. That they've been tied together since before they were born. They're both pieces on a chessboard that is beyond them. It's more about like supernatural forces and seeing the future and things like that. And so that's kind of the layout of the story a little bit. And I wanted to talk about like the writing. Sabaa Tahir's writing and the storytelling was enthralling. It was engrossing. I couldn't put this book down to save my life. Like, it was becoming 6, 7 o'clock in the morning that I would go to sleep because I was reading this book. I wanted to finish it so quickly. I was so happy to know that this was going to be, you know, the first in a series, because the way this book ended, if it wasn't a series, I would have been disappointed. But because it's going to go on to the next book, I think it was the perfect cliffhanger. And it kind of reminded me of the way that Karen Miller does cliffhangers. If you ever read her Kingmaker, Kingbreaker series, I think you would really appreciate this book. The way that the book ended, the way that the characters interacted, I thought it was pretty interesting. The setting kind of reminds me more of her Hammer of God series, especially in the book Empress. The storyline I think more suits, especially what goes on between characters, more suits the Kingmaker, Kingbreaker series. So if you loved her books, you're going to definitely love this one. This is YA, and I think I might have forgotten to mention that at the beginning. It's a YA book. It's pretty, like, large. It's out in hardcover right now. It's part of a series, and the writing is phenomenal. And while it reminds me so much of Karen Miller's writing, it's a story, obviously, all its own. It's the style, I can't say that I've read a book quite like it before. There's nothing normal about this story, which I suppose is a good thing if you're looking for a new author or new sorts of book. There's nothing normal about this story. It does kind of follow archetypes and things like that. I mean, most good stories do. So you have the fool or the hero's journey where like one or both of the characters that you're looking through these perspectives from deny that they have any sort of strength whatsoever, that they're involved in anything beyond themselves, that they're just living their lives. And we find out the story unfolds as we go along because they are important, they are part of this grand scheme, and I kind of love stories like that. And besides that, something unique about this is that both of the perspectives that we read from, Leia or Elias, are both in first person. And so that gives the author the unique ability to develop both characters' voices completely, because we have first person, we can hear, well, at least when I was reading it, we can almost hear Leia's voice, and we can tell how different it is between the two characters. It's just so well done, and I'm really looking forward to the next books, honestly. If you guys were thinking that maybe this was too hyped up, that it wasn't quite one of those books that you would read, or if you're concerned that it's a YA book, whatever, I would say, yeah, definitely pick it up. Despite everything, if you've heard it was a good book, I'm telling you it was. It was a 5 out of 5 stars book for me, and I will pick up everything left in this series. Anything Sabaa Tahir ever writes ever again, I will read. That's how good this book was. So, with that being said, that was my review of An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. And if you would like to hear more of my rambling, just hit the subscribe button below, and I'll be back soon with another video. Thank you. Bye.